Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Build Local podcast. Here we are educating, inspiring, and connecting small business owners and entrepreneurs by telling real stories of struggle and success. My name is Scott. I am your co-host. I am also the owner of Visual Element Media, and joining me from his place in New Concord, Ohio, is Chris Kansky. Thanks for co-hosting with me, Chris.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here. Like Scott said, my name's Chris Kansky. I'm the owner of New Pillar Marketing, located here in New Concord, Ohio.
Yeah, so Chris and I were actually introduced by a mutual friend, and even though you're originally from the Hollidaysburg area, you relocated and are getting back into web design and some social media marketing, and so fortunately, this mutual friend of ours connected us. And tell everyone a little bit about how you came up with this whole Build Local idea.
Yeah, so the idea behind the podcast was, I guess, sort of the inspiration for it came from listening to a number of different podcasts on startups, on entrepreneurship, and they tell these great stories where companies go from nothing to multiple millions of dollars in revenue within the first few years. And, that's fantastic. That's really exciting. It can be inspiring. But it's just not realistic. It's just not the experience of most of us that have owned businesses. So I wanted something that was a little bit more real. I thought there was a space to tell real stories, to talk about the successes that people have seen in business, but also to talk about some of the struggles and some of the fears. Particularly right now, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty out there. And I think, as small business owners, we can support each other through this time in particular.
Yeah, there's going to be so many opportunities for small businesses to come together and just support. And obviously, part of the idea of this is the reason we want to build local is because we want our communities to have a strong backbone. We all know that small businesses are the backbone to every economy. And without them, we don't have our small towns anymore. Like, they just don't exist. And so we really need people coming together, supporting one another. And like you said, this is just a huge opportunity to have that. Like, I believe this is really going to test, do we have it in us? Do we really believe in this idea that you can start a business and you can live out your dream? And so I think it's going to be an interesting yet very difficult couple of months.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, that's part of our legacy and what we believe in as Americans, is that we can pull together and we can come through times like this. I don't think any of us have lived through something like this before, but we know the stories. It's part of our legacy with the world wars and the Great Depression and things like that. And I think it's going to be, a test to see if we can pull together. I was just going to say, with what you said as well about that idea of building local. We live in this world where we have a global economy. I can buy from China, I can sell to China through e-commerce, but I think it's just so important that businesses, even if that is part of your business model, part of what you're doing, that you invest in your local community. That's a priority.
Yeah,
on some level.
Yeah, that's huge. And so I guess getting into who we are, like what we are actually bringing to the table. Let's talk a little bit about our stories. And so
Sure.
If you want to start and just talk a little bit about your background and in the way that you've gotten from where you started to where you are today, I think it'd be really helpful.
Yeah, so I went to school at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, which you're from outside of Pennsylvania. That's confusing. but there's a small town called Indiana, Pennsylvania. I think probably most of our listeners will be familiar with that. But that's where I went to school. I started out in information technology. Halfway through, switched over to marketing. So I've always kind of lived at this, this point where marketing and technology cross over, which has become more and more important in recent years.
Yeah.
So and I've always had kind of this entrepreneurial spirit. I've worked for over the last about 12 or so years since I graduated. I've worked for a number of different companies. I've done best when I have the ability to be creative, to problem solve in a creative way, um, and to just kind of have that. I've always had that entrepreneurial kind of itch to get out and do something on my own. And I worked for a startup called JMG Systems that was out of Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania, with that a friend of mine and his brother started. Really learned a lot from them, learned a lot through that process. We took that company and we grew it to where we had a pretty decent office, a number of full time employees. We had a lot of great clients, and then after that, I've kind of been a little bit of a journeyman in my career. I've worked for a number of different companies. Always in the sales, marketing, technology space, and then just in the last year or so, I decided that I want to give this a shot. I want to do this thing on my own. I think I've built up enough skills that I'm ready to do it. And so I went out on my own. I'd been doing some consulting, but made it a full time thing.
Yeah. And so what is it about, like, you primarily specialize in web and kind of branding a little bit and social media. So what is it about those mediums of communication that you just enjoy working and telling small business stories?
Absolutely. I mean, I think part of it is that sort of that marriage of the creative and the technical. I that's sort of where I live. So I just love taking the available tools and looking at a business and their goals and what they want to accomplish, and looking at all these tools and seeing how we can kind of piece something together to build a strategy that's really powerful for a business, moves them forward, helps them to accomplish their goals. And then how do we measure? How do we continuously improve that? How do we kind of throw away what's not working and lean into what is? So I think it's really I love creative problem solving.
Mhm.
Um, so that's kind of where I like to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's actually interesting because even though we had a mutual friend that introduced us, just through talking with each other, we actually found out that someone that you graduated with and another really good friend of mine, Jake, like was another point of connection. And
Right.
so
Yeah, we're connected in a lot of
yeah, so it's
ways.
it's just a really interesting dynamic, and we live in we live in a huge world that is so small because of technology, and we've been able to really connect with people in a way that you know no one has ever even thought possible before, and so
Absolutely.
it's really cool, and that's why I love this idea of build local, because we really need to build up these local businesses, and you can do that. Small businesses can reach international customers, which really just in the end helps our local economies.
Absolutely. Yeah, it opens up a whole new realm of possibilities for sure. Well, what about you, Scott? I know, I think the neat thing about this is Scott and I know each other fairly well, but we don't know everything about each other's back. You've been doing this with your business for a few years now, but
Yeah,
kind of walk us through that.
so this we just started our 12th year in business as well, and so whenever I was 18, I really didn't know what I wanted to do with life, except I knew that I wanted to start a business. And I always loved telling stories. And so video was a way that I was able to begin telling these stories. And so whenever I was 18, I launched a small little video. It wasn't even a company, like it was a small video hobby. And I would film anything and everything that I could. And I was able to grow the business. And eventually I got to the point where I had a couple of good clients. And then in like 2010, I started the company in 2008, 2010. Everything kind of came crashing down with the economy bust and everything like that.
It was a tough time.
It was just a very rough time. And so I moved to Pittsburgh and got a job in retail, worked retail for 18 months until I could get myself back up on my feet. And, you know, I didn't do the college education track for, you know, video or social marketing or podcasting or anything. Like podcasting wasn't really a thing back then, and social media marketing wasn't really a thing back then. And so I kind of just taught myself and kind of grew with the platforms. And looking back, I wish I would have done so much more. But I mean, 12 years into it, and I mean, with this whole coronavirus thing going around now, we're definitely seeing a huge impact with our business because most of our clients are person-to-person businesses. And so we're trying to navigate through that, and really we're still trying to find ways to connect businesses with the right people. And what we're learning is actually we need to get more creative about how we do that. The fact that we're able to record this podcast in real time, hundreds of miles away from each other, is just, it's unthinkable. You know, it's really cool, I should say. And so I just love being able to do that. I love finding ways to do things different and be creative in the ways that we connect and the ways that we tell stories. And so I try to bring that to all of the projects that I work on with our clients. So,
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think you bring up a great point about, you know, another thing that this digital economy does is it gives you the opportunity to continue learning and to teach yourself in a lot of ways that may not have been available in the past.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that through that, like the exciting part about this is that we are all learning. Like in business, I've never found that you get to a point where you're like, okay, I know everything that's going on. I don't need to, you know, invest in learning anything new. Like if anything, when you get to where we are, you know, we're investing more in education because we want to have that upper edge, and yet we're still moving, we're still going. And I think that's the balance that we kind of need to work through in how much do I spend educating and, you know, researching and doing all that stuff, but still getting projects done and marketing. And I mean, owning a business is a lot of fun, but it's a ton of work.
No, I think you bring up another great point, and that's that, you know, you don't, no matter how successful you are, you don't win. You never win business.
Right.
You know, you never get to a point where you've won and it's finished. And, you know, it keeps going, whether you've seen some setbacks or whether you've had a lot of success. You got to keep, you know, putting your nose to the grindstone and keep moving forward. And I think that's an important point in the current situation as well.
Well, hopefully that gave you all a little bit of insight to what we're looking to accomplish here at the Build Local podcast, a little bit about Chris and I and our journey and our desire to learn more, to help small businesses, you know, gap the communication barriers that technology seems to always be creating. And so we're here to answer any questions that you have. And we would love to have you and your business on the podcast. So if you would like to be on the podcast, please reach out to us. You can connect with us on our Facebook page. Just go to facebook.com/Let's Build Local, and you can connect with us there. Chris, any last words?
Yeah, just excited to get started, excited about this endeavor, and to talk to some inspiring small business owners.
Awesome. Well said. So thank you again for watching, and we will see you. We're going to be dropping a few of these out in the next few weeks. So be sure to subscribe to YouTube and follow us on Facebook. That's Let's Build Local, and you can visit us at letsbuildlocal.com. We'll talk to you again soon.